Yo, what is up guys? Today we're going to be doing a tier list. It's more so catered from, let's say, Iron to Diamond. And we're just going to quickly cover every top lane champion, where I would rank it, why I rank it there, and yeah, let's go into it. So, Aatrox I'm going to be putting in B tier. I feel like this champion is too weak right now because after durability changes, this champion got completely gutted, right? Gordrinker is not a good mythic for him anymore. Eclipse used to be good for him, but now they've also changed the item build and the way that Eclipse works because it doesn't give Omnivamp anymore. So yeah, Aatrox right now, I would say is in B tier. I don't think he's good right now, so yeah, I'll put him there. Akshan I would put in Don't Touch. I feel like this champion is one of the hardest champions to play in the top lane because he's very easy to shut down. Yes, he has a very good level 1 to level 4, but very often, and especially for the lower MMRs, they do not know how to pilot their champion too well. They get caught once, they die, and then you're playing Akshan from behind, you have no idea what to do. I would only recommend this champion to somebody that actually like one-tricks it or play like 100, 200 games with this champion in the season because this champion is very hard to play, so by default, it's going in Don't Touch. Counter pick for Akali. Akali's in the counter tier because I feel like she's only good when your team comp needs like some AP damage from topside and they have melee topside champions. Akali does fairly well into Nord, that's like the only range champions, but in most of the melee champions, Akali doesn't function that well in lane, and she's very good into melee topside like the Jax, the Fiora, the Riven. She does pretty well into those champions, so that's where I would put her in the counter pick. Let's take a look here. Where's the next top laner? There's no top lanes here, right? No, there's not. Well, we could put Alistar in here. I would say Alistar is a counterpick top laner as well. They've buffed his AP ratios for his Q and his W, I believe, and also his passive heal, I think, is increased with your AP or with your maxed up. I'm not entirely sure what they've done with that, but they for sure buffed his numbers, and I feel like it's only catered towards Alistar when you play him in top lane, right? Because those are the only times where you'll actually be building AP. He's good into melee topside, such as like the Jax, right? He's more so a neutralizer because his two abilities to completely shut down everything that Jax wants to do. I've also played some Riven into an Alistar top. It was absolutely unplayable because he just presses QW, his jungle comes, and WQ, and his jungle comes, and I'm completely dead, right? So I personally really dislike playing against Alistar top, but he's also only pretty much a counter pick. Alright, let's take a look. Camille. I would put Camille in B tier as well. Now, actually, in second thought, Aatrox goes in C tier. This champion is so weak right now. I feel like he's rarely good, so I just put him in C tier. Camille, I would put in B tier because I feel like she is strong once she has Divine Sun. So this is pretty much how every single Camille games go, okay? You win level 1 to level 5 because you're stronger in the early game. You get your passive, you get your W healing, you have your Flash Ignite very often, or like your Ignite TP, right? So you're very strong level 1 to level 6. Then from level 6 till you're Divine Thunderer, you're literally a useless champion besides more so setup, and you hope your team plays well around you and lets you play the game. If enemy jungler plays into you during that pocket, good luck playing the game. Once you get Divine Thunderer, you are strong again and you are a strong champion. But that period between like level 6 until level, let's say like 9, 10, where you're building your Divine Thunderer, very often you will fall behind, and then Camille kind of feels like less to play. And once you have Divine and Hydra, and maybe like a third item, you feel very strong. But you very often have to get to that point, and that is the problem with Camille right now in such a fast paced, snowballing game, so that's why I don't like Camille that much right now. Also, she's not the best mind pick. Cho'Gath for me puts in S tier. I feel like he's not in broken tier because he is still definitely counted by percentage health damage and by certain champs in the top lane, right? But in the general sense, I feel like this is a safe blind pick. He is very, very strong, has a lot of base damage, has very nice item options, and also skills very well into most comps. So he's very, like, I would say, noob friendly in the sense that very often people don't know how to deal with these stat checking beasts, right? Because they take equal HP trade with the Cho'Gath, they lose their resource. Let's say I'm Camille into a Cho'Gath, right? I trade half my HP for half his HP. He sustains with the wave, he's back to full HP. How can play, right? And very often people don't know how to play around this. They trade into him, although they should just be completely avoiding him and looking to outskill him. Instead, they're fighting him. Cho'Gath gets ahead. He's a monster. He's unable to be dealt with. So that's why I would Cho'Gath in S tier. Darius, I would put in. I think I would put him in A tier. I feel like Darius is quite strong right now. Ever since the durability changes, this champion has always been strong. He was the rank 1 top laner for I think 5 patches in a row. Now he's not the strongest right now because I feel like there's other champions that are just able to be dealt with him. He's definitely not the best at blind pick champion right now, but he's still very stable. He's a stat check champion. He lands E, you're pretty much dead. It's just hard with Darius sometimes to get a lead and to expand it onto the rest of the map because you have no dashes, right? So you're more so reliant on very good macro, and that's why I put Darius in A tier. Let's see, Dr. Shmundo. I'll put Dr. Shmundo in B tier. Now, actually no, I'm gonna put him in counter tier, and I'll explain why. You can only pick Mundo if enemy team does not have Divine Sunderer or Blade of the Rune King champions. If they have Blade of the Rune King or Divine Sunderer champions, Mundo loses half of his value because they will have percentage health damage, right? So very often, Dr. Shmundo is very good when enemy team has comps like, for example, I don't know, like a Sync Stop, that would be like one of the best, right? And they have a jungler, I don't know, maybe a Kindred. Sure, you could go Blade of the King, but it's not that impressive, and then maybe like a Vaxmith or something like that, right? If you pick Dr. Shmundo there, you'll be super good, you cannot die, you one-shot them, you skill to a beast, and you'll be fine. But if you blind pick this champion, they pick Camille, good luck playing the game. So that's pretty much Mr. Mundo right there. Fiora, A tier for me. She is quite hard to play, a lot of skill expression, unless you go Grasp and Divine Sunderer and you are a cuck. But you can go for that, right? I play that myself, that gives me LP, so I go Grasp Divine as well. I'm just going, yeah, no worries. Grasp Divine and Camille, very easy to play. You can also go for the Conqueror and like the Conqueror and then Nimbus Cloak setup where you go Flash Ignite and play super towards the limits. You rush Hydra, you go Divine second. It's a bit harder, but it's more rewarding. It's like high risk, high reward, right? The Grasp Divine is like low risk, medium reward, and the Conqueror Hydra Rush is like high risk, high reward. So you can kind of play the champ with a Feast or Famine, or you can more so go for the more disciplined approach. I like the more disciplined approach. I'm not a cuck, I just play disciplined, that's it. But yeah, you can blind pick her, you can play her as a counter pick. You can blind pick her, some hard matchups, but you can nullify them with Grasp. And for the easy matchups, for example, a lot of tanks are being played right now. Fiora's always been a tank destroyer, right? So that's why I put her in A tier. Sorry for that. Let's take a look. Gangplank. Gangplank for me, ever since it changes, I feel like he's B tier. I feel like he is stronger the higher elo you get, because the games are very often, not always, more, let's say, structured, and like people play more disciplined, so you're also able to get more gold and get to your items faster. And in a structured game where the game is in an even state, GP will very often get ahead because he has more gold than his opponents, so we have more items, so he's stronger at mid game, right? But he's also very vulnerable in laning phase. People are able to track his barrels right now, so he's a lot less, like, I guess, surprise angles. So I feel like he's not too strong right now. I just put him in a comfortable B spot. I feel like it's fair. I feel like he gets exposed by a lot of counter picks, so that's why I just put him in B tier. Garen, the top lane GOAT, A tier. The reason I put Garen in A tier is because this champion is very strong and it's very simple to play. I would recommend this to every lower MMR player picking up like League of Legends. Basically, how I describe Garen, it's like the best champion to learn how to play top lane, because your kit is so outdated and so like limited that the only thing you can really do is run into your opponents, trade HP, and hope you come out with a more with a beneficial HP trade, right? Of course, there's some skill expression in how you use your W. It's like, oh, he pressed W at the correct time. GG, bro. Garen. It's like, you trade half your HP, your opponent loses half his HP, you sustain, you win. That's kind of how it goes, and at level 6 you one-shot them. But in the early game you're very vulnerable and you do not want to fall behind. So Garen is very reliant on having good fundamentals, and this is also why I recommend this champion to any learning top laner, to anybody learning top, because this champion allows you to really focus on the fundamentals and not have too much kill mentality, because very often you're simply not able to kill your opponent because you have to play for your, with wave hits, right? So this is why I really like this champion. Gnar, I'll put in, well, honestly, I'm considering between C tier and Don't Touch. I'm going to put him in Don't Touch, and the reason as to why is because this champion is very limited. As in, he's like decent in lane rate. I would say he's like the Ezreal of top lane, but you kind of do everything for like half of what other champions can do, right? He's decent at engage, but not very good at engage, and he's like decent at split pushing, but not good at split pushing. He's like decent blind pick, but not the best blind pick. He is decent in laning, the best laning. He's just the Ezreal of top lane. It's a safe pick. I hate playing against it. I feel like this champion does not have hyper carry. It's just like champion that does everything for like 60%, and that's why I don't like playing Gnar, and also why I wouldn't recommend him. Gragushka. Gragushka is S tier, maybe even broken tier. S tier. The reason I put Gragushka in S tier is because this champion kind of has everything. He's a very strong tank, right? But you can also pick him more so as an AP assassin, where you can one-shot bomba people. You have so much versatility in the way you can set up your runes and your items in the early game, which is insane. You can go for the Everfrost, or you can go for the Rylai's build. You have Phase Rush, you have Comet, you have First Strike. There's so many different playstyles you can go with Gragas, and with your W passive sustain, you're pretty much never being able to really get forced out of lane, because you're just so consistent on Gragas. So yeah, I feel like he's good wave clear. He's engage, disengage. He's mixed damage and topside, which is very often very nice. So yeah, I put this champion in S tier. I feel like he's very strong right now. Gwen, don't touch. C tier, counterpick. Gwen is counterpick. Why? She's only good into certain team comps with tanks. If your team needs AP topside and they need like a high DPS champion in topside, so for example, they have a full tank and your full team is armor, right? And you need some magic damage, but you also need DPS because they have those tank, that's where Gwen is good. Any other game, Gwen is shit. That's kind of how it goes. That's it. Yeah, that's it. Ilaoi, broken. S tier, broken. S tier, broken. S tier, S tier. Why she's S tier? She just has the weirdest hitboxes in the game. She's just a complete stupid stat check champion. Very hard to get pushed out of lane unless you're playing like a range champion. If you're playing any melee topside champion, you know how to play against Ilaoi. Dodge E or die. That's pretty much how it goes. If you dodge E, you're happy. You get hit by E, you're not happy. This champion just really sucks playing against. I feel like her hitboxes, like I said, are very hard to deal with. She also has a very nice mythic right now where she's basically unkillable but still one-shot you, so that's very nice. So yeah, that's why I put her in S tier right now. I feel like she's very strong, good static champion. The lower elo you go, the harder people will have problems like with versing her, so that's why I put her in S tier right here. Did I miss any top laner? I don't think we have. Irelia. I would put Irelia into don't touch for the lower MMRs. Yes, Irelia can be very obnoxious to play against, and yes, everybody has been one-shot by a Blade King Irelia. However, this champion, guys, you kinda cannot blind pick Irelia, because if anybody plays champions that counter her, such as like, I don't know, Fiora, Jax, Renekton, even champions like Riven or like Camille, they can completely annihilate the... I'm trying to think here, right? There's like multiple ways to approach this. Like, I just put Irelia on counterpick. Yes, I'll put Irelia on counterpick. You never blind pick Irelia unless you are one trick. If you are one trick Irelia player, you can blind pick this champion because you have to verse champions like Fiora, Jax, Renekton, Riven, these kind of matchups, and they're super unforgiving for Irelia. You fall behind Irelia, you are useless. But if you're playing just like easy matchups such as like, I don't know, Jace and Gnar, these kind of champions, they can still be pretty tough if your opponent is good, but in a general sense, Irelia should win those, so then Irelia top is actually good. Again, do not play the champion casually, don't blind pick Irelia ever, you're gonna get completely bent over, it's not gonna be a playable game. Only use the champion as a counter pick, or if you're one trick, then I guess you are allowed to blind pick her. That's it. Jaximus, broken. Yes, he has been nerfed, and yes, he's sometimes a bit, like, he definitely loses against some of these stronger tanks, but I'm gonna put this champion in broken tier, and I'll explain why. Jax is everything you want in a top lane champion. He has good early laning, good mid lane, like, decent in mid game, and, like, good late game. He has split push, he has team fighting, he has engage, like, he can start a fight right, he's also good at peeling. Like, yes, he gets countered by certain champions like Malphite, Gragas. Like, they're pretty hard matchups for him, right? But he can just go even. He also has double setups where he could go for the lethal temp or he could go for the grass setup. He's just fine. Divine Thunder is completely broken on him. He gets percentage health damage. He has percentage health damage in Divine, percentage health damage in his E. He can even go percent health damage with Blade Throne King. Like, this champion kind of has everything in the game right now. And because of this, especially after durability changes, that's still active, right? Jax is broken. That's why I just put him in broken here. That's it. Jace. I would put Jace in... I'll put him in A tier. Now, the reason I put him in A tier is because Jace, as a champion, has a very high skill expression and is very hard to play consistently, right? Because it's very, like, he's no... sorry, he doesn't have sustain. He does not have a lot of... Oh, he has no mobility, right? Only form of mobility this champion has is a movement speed. And if you fall behind as Jace, it's sometimes still salvageable, but very often you're going to be a complete tool. Especially if you fall behind against a champion that is already going to naturally outscale you. So Jace, the benefit from Jace is if you're able to play fundamentally correct and you stay even with your opponents, your first two item spikes are way faster, and also your first item usually is way faster than your opponents, and that's why you can really pressure lane, and like once you're level 7 you can completely run over your lane opponent, right? But very often, people fall behind on Jace, they get ganked because he's very vulnerable to ganks and they fall behind. I feel like he's super strong right now, though. You're also able to go for the Gore Drinker and the Eclipse build. So because of this, I'm going to be putting him in A tier, but it's a mild A. It's like between A and B. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and put him in A here, but it's also up to you guys on how you pilot this champion. Sorry for that. Okay, let's take a look at Mr. Cannon. Cannon goes into A tier for me as well. This champion is all about spacing. And I feel like he has been a bit more forgiving because his W has an indicator now when it's landing. I feel like he is very few counter picks. He's very stable to be a blind pick. Very often AD junglers get picked. You can just pick Gale Cannon top and you're completely fine. I feel like this champion has a lot of things. He's good laning, good team fighting, and he just very often struggles dealing with ganks. So I'm still going to be putting him in A tier, but he does have some more mobility with his E, right? I feel like the champion is very strong. I feel like if you play 10 to 20 games on Cannon, you'll pretty much be a good Cannon player, or like decent, right? He doesn't have the highest skill expression, and that's why I'm going to put him on A tier. Okay, let's take a look. That's all, folks. Kled goes into S tier. The reason I put Kled into S is because he's able to deal with a lot of champions in the top lane right now, and this might be very controversial, but I feel like he is broken into a lot of champions right now as well. Due to the fact that you can go Eclipse and Hydra on Kled, which he wasn't able to do before. Like the biggest Kled... Sorry. I'll just repeat myself here. Kled goes in A tier for me. And the reason as to why is because Kled, after the durability changes, has had a very nice build buff right now where you're able to go Hydra into Eclipse. Now, Kled very often fell off after one item because you got Gore Drinker, and then afterwards enemies would kind of outskill you because you do not really have their you cannot really one-shot them anymore, you don't have your one-shot potential, and if Kled doesn't one-shot you, he's kind of a useless champion, right? But with the Hydra Eclipse build, you go very Feast or Famine playstyle, but very often it's beneficial for Kled because you have two forms, right? You first have to get out of your horse and then kind of get killed again. And very often if Kled has that much damage, it's very hard to deal with him. So with the new like Hydra Eclipse one-shot build, I feel like Kled is in an S tier position right now. He's very, very strong, skills well into the game, and this is also why I really like him a lot. And very often after those two items, you can also just go for Soralja's third, you get even more damage. He skills like a monster, good on sideline, good on team fighting, good in mid game. Yeah, later games you will get outskilled very often, right? But in a general sense, the champion is very strong. You can play him in both mid and top, so he's also a flex pick. So yeah, I really like Kled. I'm gonna put him in S tier because of that. Let's see, where did we drop off? We dropped off right here. Lee Sin. I'm gonna put Lee Sin in a B tier. He's very strong in the top lane, stat check champion, a lot of early game damage, high skill expression, but he has self built in sustain. He has magic damage and AD damage because he is magic damage. Very nice build path to the Gore Drinker, very passive in the laning phase, can even 2v1 very often at level 6, you have like one-shot abilities, but he has high skill expression and he does fall off if you do not get ahead. So yeah, I'm gonna put Lee Sin in B tier because of that. Alright, Malphite. Guys, Malphite, broken. Why broken? Most broken champion in the game right now. If you are a top laner and you have not versed Malphite, I don't know, you're living under a rock. If you are playing Malphite, you are the rock, you have a lot of success because the champion is simply put broken. You can go for grass setup or you can go for combat setup depending on the matchup, and all you really need to do is learn how to maximize certain matchups. So for example, when you're playing into Jax as Malphite, you're going to go combat and you're going to go Q max, but for example when you play against a Riven, you would go grasp and you would go W max on Malphite. So the only thing a Malphite player needs to know is have some knowledge. I'll show you right here. I'm currently ranked 23 on the US server and I have a 76% win rate on my Malphite. I never die. I'm always in a good spot. This champion is broken. You heard that? Broken. Play the champion. If you want LP, pick Malphite. Broken champion, right there. Alright. Another champion is Mordekaiser. For the lower MMRs, I'm going to put this champion in S tier. Why S tier? Because this champion actually is very hard to get. Like, if you know how to shut on a Mordekaiser, it's way easy to play against this champion, right? Because he cannot really, like, he does not really have the best laning phase pre-6, but if this champion gets to level 6 for free, and after his first recall, he's very often just going to be in a fine spot and he goes even, he will not kill you, he will stat check you, and it'll be very hard to deal with unless you get ganks and you kind of get salvage out of your position. He's going to permanently push you under your turret and you kind of hope to be in a good spot. Mordekaiser is a very hard champion to deal with when you ever fall behind or go even against him. You kind of need to get ahead, and it is kind of easy to get ahead against him in the early game, right? But if your jungle doesn't play around you, or you don't know how to abuse this champion in the early game yourself, then this champion will just simply, like I said, stat check you, and because of that, he's a very, very strong lower MMR champion, so that's why I put him in S tier. Nasus. I'm gonna put him in counter tier. I really like Nasus. I've played the champion a lot of competitive myself as well. Back in the days when Malphite wasn't as broken as he is right now, I would pick him into Malphite, for example. I feel like right now you can only pick it into certain team comps where you can really utilize your abilities to the max. So for example, you play against a Kalista, right, that is pretty much reliant on having movement speed. You press W onto her, she will legit crumble, cannot play the game. So I would play this champion when you play a champion in the top lane that is not going to completely harass you and like push you out of lane, and then again that where it's also like decent to the enemy comp. So he's not very often good, but situationally he can be good. Alright, let's take a look. Olaf. Olaf. He got nerfed, guys. Does not matter. The champion is still broken. He is just like the GOAT of top lane right now. He wins every match at level 1, maybe besides Urgot. But even then, I don't know. Olaf might come out the victor if Urgot messes E or something. This champion is just so hard to deal with. If you play against an Olaf that knows his limits, you ever use one cooldown on the wave too much, he'll completely annihilate you instantly. It's just broken because after level 6 it's even hard to get to die to a lot of junglers as well, because you can just run away from their CC or even 2v1 you at a lot of scenarios. So I feel like this champion, you really just are forced to like stand on your toes for the entire laning phase, hope you outskill him or like go even, and then you will be fine, right? But if you fall behind against this champion, it's such obnoxious champion to play against. Very hard to deal with. Completely broken champion, that's why he's in broken tier, of course. Alright. Ornn, I'll put him B tier. I feel like he's a good tank. He's decently, like, I don't like tanks too much unless they have carry potential. I feel like Cho'Gath and Gragas and Malphite kind of have that right now. But Ornn is still too team reliant and he's very hard to like push your leads with. So I would personally put him in B tier because I don't think he's too strong. He's good laning, right? He's good in laning. He has some complex combos, but if you're able to do them off, like pull them off consistently, you can one-shot your opponents very often. I feel like you're more so just reliant on the matchup you're playing. He's not the best blind pick because a lot of champions can still completely annihilate him, so I'm going to put him in B tier because of that reason. I like Ornn that much. Alright, Mr. Quinn. I'm going to put Quinn in Don't Touch. Actually, no. I'll put her in B tier. Now, the reason why I would consider putting Quinn in Don't Touch is because you kind of reliant on getting ahead with the champion in lane, or at least go even till 6 and then start roaming right and impacting the map. But that is also a strength, especially in the lower MMRs. People will not respect your ganks too much, so you can just push out your lane, hop on your bird, and go roam, and impact the rest of the map. And because of that, I'll put her in B tier, but in a general sense, I don't like playing her too much. I see I skipped one champion. I have Kill right here. I'm going to put Kill, very controversial, in A tier, okay? Usually, I would never recommend people playing Kill in any MMRs, but in the lower MMRs, you're very often going to be allowed to skill into the game because people don't know how to shut you down. Now, you also force your team to completely play the game differently, right? This is why I would not recommend Kill, but in the lower MMRs, people will not punish you. You're able to skill to your level 11 quite free, right? And then you can just farm to your level 16 and the game is over, right? So this champion, the higher elo you go, the more you get punished. But in the lower MMRs, people won't punish you. And if you get ahead in lane, like if you play a lot of kill, you even know how to survive or maybe even get ahead, you can become a complete monster and still carry your games, right? Because the games are very often more, like they're less structured, which opens up more scaling opportunities for a champion like Kill. So that's why I'll put him in A tier. Okay, did we miss anything? Let's see. Pantheon. Pantheon is in S tier. Now I'll explain why Pantheon is S tier. I feel like Pantheon has relatively high skill expression, guys. So this is very, like, people see Pantheon and they think, oh, it's like easy champion to play. No, you are wrong. The champion is all about spacing, and if you manage to space well on Pantheon, you will be a monster. Because his kit is relatively limited, but so it's all about spacing, right? Spacing your Q, spacing your W, spacing your E. But this champion right now is so unforgiving to play against in the top lane. Only few champions that are able to deal with the champion is like Malphite and all of it. The broken champions are able to deal with him, right? But everything other than here, like Pantheon can just completely annihilate them. He one-shots a lot of the champions like level 3, level 4. He completely one-shots you with Ignite. And then you also have your ultimate to impact the rest of the map. So I would put Pantheon in S tier. It's definitely worth to invest time into learning this champion. I have not done it myself because I play like super high elos, right? I feel like it's harder to get the solo kills, but if you're playing lower MMRs, people don't know his limits. If you know his limits, you'll get so many solo kills and you have a lot of success. So I definitely recommend picking Pantheon up and getting your LP that way. Alright, Renekton. Renekton to me is a C tier champion. Now he is a stat checking champion and he's quite strong in that regard, but because of this, the biggest problem I have with Renekton right now is that his only viable options is like Gore Drinker Prowlers, and they're probably going to remove Prowlers from what I've heard. So then you're left with the Gore Drinker setup. It's not consistent, it doesn't scale, it's good during laning phase, he's stat check champion during laning phase, but after laning phase he's kind of like the old Kled. You get outskilled so fast, and because of this I just don't like playing this champion. You're so reliant on getting ahead and staying ahead, and if you go even or behind, you're useless. So I put him in C tier. I don't like playing Renekton. Rengar. Rengar top, broken. You might be wondering, huh? Rengar top broken? Yes, this champion is actually very broken, but you also need to be very good on Rengar top. He is super versatile in top lane because you're able to go a lot of mythics. You can go for Eclipse, you can go Gore Drinker, you can go Divine. I've even seen Rengar players that go for like the Frozen Fist item, right? So there's kind of like a possibility for 4 different mythics. You can go Fleet top, you can go Conqueror top, you can go Grass top. and he's able to deal with a lot of these matchups. Like, he's countered by a few champions. For example, Darius completely runs over Rengar, right? But in a lot of matchups, he is so free to do whatever he wants. No champion can really approach him in the early. Very few champions can approach him in the early game. And after one item, and like during laning phase, he's so obnoxious to deal with. For example, Malphite, one of the most broken champions in top lane right now, gets completely shit on my Rengar because every time Malphite wants to trade, Rengar jumps on top of him with his grasp, he rushes the Vine, and he just uses W twice, and he just escapes he just trades, and just completely equal HP trade. Like, he always outtrades you and always outsustains you. So the way to play against Rengar is to literally not lane, and farm, and hopefully outscale him later, right? So, I feel like Rengar, just for laning phase right now, is completely broken. If you are a top laner that is like trying to look for a niche pick and wants to invest his time into a champion that people don't have too much information about, I'll pick up Rengar top. I would invest 50 to 100 games into this champion, and I guarantee you, after 50 to 100 games, you'll be in a position where your opponents have no idea how to play against you, because you'll be so versatile, you have a lot of different options, and yeah, Rengar is very strong in those scenarios. So definitely recommend picking this champion up in the top lane. Poppy. Poppy is in the counter pick section because she is good into melee top sides. And then have a lot of dashes, right? But she does kind of struggles playing into a lot of other matchups, and she doesn't scale too well. So I would put her in counter pick. She's good into certain team comps, like champions like Riven, for example. She completely shit on, but against champions like, for example, Jace, the Poppy will get shit on. So yeah, I feel like it's a counter pick option, and you should only pick it as a counter pick. Let's take a look. We left off at Riven, my favorite champion. For the lower MMRs, I'm going to be putting her into A tier. I'll put her in A tier because she's very high skill expression and she's quite hard to play. Now, if you are Riven, like, the more games you play Riven, the more broken this champion gets. But very often people play Riven casually, or like 20 games. But if you play 20 games with anything, you'll be like this good, right? If you play 20 games with Riven, you'll be this good. Like, the linear, or like the more games you play on Riven, the better you will get, the more broken the champion gets. But the less games you have on Riven, it's just such a coin flip, right? So you really need to learn how to manage your abilities, how to learn how to lane without sustain, right? You need to learn to lane without sustain, and how to itemize correctly your all-in windows, your trade patterns. So yeah, the more time you invest into this champion, the more broken it will become. But you also need to invest that time before it becomes before it starts getting broken, right? So yeah, that's Riven. What else? Did we miss any champion right here? Just trying to verify that I don't miss anything. I don't think so. Okay. Move on. Rumble top. Definitely S tier. Rumble top is very strong. If you're looking for an AP top lane champion that you can blind pick and pretty much always win lane with, it is a Rumble. Especially after the last buff they did to him, it's completely broken. They just gave him a free, what's it called? Void Staff in his E, because he's 40% magic penetration now on his E, which is completely stupid. So, well, not magic penetration, it lowers your MMR, so kind of penetration your MMR, right? Therefore, how Rumble works is he is very strong up until one item. If you're even after one item, Rumble will get outskilled. But Rumble is so strong in lane that you should never really allow your opponent to go even. You get ahead, you're 1.5 item against his one item, you'll always be ahead, you're very good in team fights, and if you stay ahead or even, Rumble is, like, you can never approach this champion. He'll literally one-shot you. Very often he can also 2v1 against his melee topsides. Right? For example, I had a Vi the other game. He ulted the Rumble. Rumble laid down his blanket below him and just Q'd and W'd, and this Vi just got one-shot before I even arrived. So, yeah, this champion is very strong. I put him in S tier. Very, very strong champion in the top lane right now. Let's take a look. Set. I'm putting him in B tier. Set is in B tier because he is, well, no, A tier. He's going to be in A tier. He's a relatively easy kit to play. That's why I put him in A tier, because the lower more you get, people don't know how to play against this champion, because he has sustain with his second wind, with his passive, with his D-shoot very often, right? So he's a pretty obnoxious champion to deal with. Very high base damage, very good laning phase, but the more items you get, the faster you start getting outskilled as well, because his best mythic right now is either Strikebreaker or Gore Drinker, and after the durability changes, this champion doesn't really benefit that much. Now you can argue that set is built in true damage, but it's only through his W, and you can get on-hit damage with Blade of the King, but that item is not always good in every game, right? Against tanks it will be good, but most options you cannot go Blade of the King set, so yeah, I feel like this champion is limited because of that reason, and that's why I put it in S tier. If he had better items and he was in a bit better position, I would think this champion could be in broken tier, yeah, but right now he's in A tier. Sion, my favorite tank in the game. Sadly, I'm gonna have to put him in counter pick. As you can see right here, he's my third most played champion right now on this account. I really love playing him into certain matchups, for example, like Malphite, because Sion completely shits on Malphite. Now, Sion as a champion looks very easy to play. Trust me, he's not. He's all about spacing, and he's actually very mechanically intense, and this is also why I love Sion. Sion is also one of the few tanks that is able to have so high resources that you can almost like outvalue carries like bruisers or like 80 carries and stuff like that, because you can go for the Sunfire, Heartsteel, and then Titanic Hydra build on Sion, and if you face against comps that don't have percentage health damage, you will run at them and they cannot do anything. Like, you will one-shot their backlines without them being able to kill you, and it will be super, super broken. But it's only good in certain comps, and this is why I, generally speaking, counter-pick Sion myself. I'm gonna take a little bit of sip of water because I'm talking so much. Shen. I'm going to be putting Shen in A tier. I put Shen in A tier due to the fact that he has a very strong early laning phase, one of the strongest early laning phase, even stronger than champions like Renekton and Zed. He can definitely match or even out damage, because if you drag your blade through your opponent, you get extra attack speed, you get extra damage. Shen is very, very impressive. And then after level 6, you can always have the mental pressure for the rest of your team that they can start any skirmish on the map, right? So like, Shen is strong because of that. But he doesn't have the highest carry potential, so that's why he's only on A tier. Like, you're still reliant on your team to kind of carry you. You can set them up, but you cannot very often carry the game completely by yourself. Okie dokie, Singed. I would put Singed in this, like, I don't know, just don't touch. Just don't touch Singed unless you're actually, like, Singed works in challenger games because people play the champion like a psychopath, okay? They skip wave 1, they proxy wave 2, they proxy wave 3, they die, and they run bot and they roam with Predator Singed, and they try to like do these most random roams on like mid dives, bot dives, and impact the map that way. Singed players roam and play like psychopaths, but they actually cannot carry the game themselves, right? So in a lower MMRs, I would never play the champion. You will not carry games on Singed. Maybe sometimes, unless you're like a Singed one-shot, right? But if you're a casual player, don't touch Singed. Sucks, like, this champion so limited. You want your team to carry you, you want to roam, you want to play the champion like a psychopath. If you're a psychopath, go play Singed. If you're not, don't play Singed. That's how it goes. Yeah, pretty much. Okie dokie. What else do we have? Tom Coco Lounge. I'll put Tom Coco Lounge in B tier. Now, he is a static champion. It's kind of annoying to deal with, but it's like, the reason I don't like playing Tom Kench top is because he's, I think, the only top laner without wave clear. Like, he's so bad regarding wave clear. So he's so limited in how fast he can play the game. Like, he's strong in laning phase, but after laning phase, you're more so just a sitting duck. You can't really farm jungle camps, you can't really farm side waves, you're mostly grouping with your teammate, you hope it all goes well. And this is why I feel like Tom Kench is too limited, and I put him in B tier. Okay, we're gonna be putting Tryndamere. Tryndamere for me goes in A tier. Tryndamere is kind of similar to Garen, where all you're pretty much doing is launching yourself into your opponents, you trade HP with them, and then you press Q and you come out the benefactor. Like, Tryndamere is one of the worst champions in the game due to the fact that he has such limited like trade patterns, right? You E in, you hit a bit, and then you retreat or you're all in. That's kind of how it goes, and then you try and outstay your opponents and win that way. So because this kit is so limited, this is also where the beauty comes in, where you have to really learn how to play with your limits. Like, if you play against a Tryndamere that knows his limits, he's very scary. If you play against a mediocre Tryndamere, like, it's very easy to play because he doesn't know his limits, he doesn't punish you, and then you're just able to completely walk over them, right? So it's a very feast or famine champion. Again, if this guy knows his limits, very scary. If this guy doesn't know his limits, very easy. So yeah, that's kind of Tryndamere. That's it. Alright. Now, Teemo top. Teemo top, guys, is broken. Why is Teemo top? Is he broken? Is he broken, or is he S tier? I'm going to put him in S tier. I'm putting him in S tier because he is very easy to blind pick. He wins into almost every top lane champion right now. He can deal against them all if you know how to itemize and also use your correct runes on this champion. There's even a challenger Teemo player right now in EU West. He's very oppressive to deal with, and he's very strong at laning. And this champion barely loses lane unless you die to ganks. So if you're able to like scout enemy jungle and know a bit about jungle tracking, place down some wards, and then just completely harass your opponent into the pavement, go up 40 CS, get some plates, and then you'll be a monster, right? In the mid to late stages, he is decent. He's not the best, right? But with good shroom placement and with like good map movement, this champion is just super obnoxious to play against. And yeah, the hardest part about Teemo is the surviving lane against him. So if you're good at laning, pick up Teemo. You'll for sure get a lot of LP because of that. Urgot. Urgot goes in B tier for me. I put Urgot in B tier, and I know he's a static champion, he's very strong because of that, but the higher elo you get, the more limited you will be. He's good in early laning phase, especially if you're able to land your E's, but if you don't land your E's, you're kind of a useless champion. Too many champions in the game have dashes right now, have a lot of movement speed, have high range. So I feel like Urgot as a champion just does not have the nicest place in League of Legends right now. He has no good mythics, besides I guess Jackshaw, but it's not even like the mythic he would want because he needs damage. So yeah, I feel like Urgot, because of those reasons, is just very limited, kind of similar to Tom Kench, and this is why I don't like the champion too much. Okay. Yep. Warwick top, S tier. If you are Warwick top, you're by default a criminal, but it's fine because he's actually very good into melee champions. You can very often even invade enemy jungle and top laner 1v2 at their buff and completely annihilate them. He's just very obnoxious to deal against. The thing is, Warwick players, they're just the dumbest players in the world because they play Warwick and all they know is how to like go in and hopefully kill their opponents by out-sussaining them and completely surviving their all-in. Like, I don't know, this champion is so weird to play against. Luckily for us, Warwick players very often have some like brain issues, so they just go in every time. They don't respect jungle gangs, and if like Warwick players actually evolve, they might be hard to play against. However, there are some smart Warwick players. They're actually a Warwick player in Challenger. It's called Horlime. That guy kind of has a brain, so he's able to perform well on Warwick, and that guy's very opposite to deal with. So that's why I put him in S tier, because I've never seen a Challenger player be Warwick like a Warwick one trick. So I respected that guy. But yeah, the average Warwick player has no brain, so just make sure you use that. But yeah, still the way this strat functions right now on top lane is definitely S tier top laner, sadly. So yeah, there's that. Let's see, Yasuo and Yon. I would just put both of them in don't. Well, I'm gonna put Yasuo in don't touch because he's like just such a bad blind pick, and you're not really able to win any matchups unless you're very skilled on this champion. But this champion is probably the worst champion in top lane because, like Yasuo as a champion cannot function. Cannot be blind picked because you have like Renekton, Jax, Riven, Camille, like so many champions that completely annihilate this champion, and only if you're like a spacing legend like Zukil, then maybe you can make this work. If you're not Zukil, don't pick Yasuo top. You're not Zukil, so don't pick it. Yon top, I would put him in B tier. No, A tier. No, B tier. No, A tier. No, B tier. B tier. B tier. Yes. Why? Because he's so high skill expression now. He's kind of very good once you get ahead, right? You go with your exhaust setup, you go for A tier. He is A tier. Because people don't respect his extended fights and his all windows enough, so you're actually very often able to run completely over your opponents because they simply do not respect your all-in windows. He is not the best blind pick champion, but you're actually able to function even into some of the harder matchups like Jax and Olaf and Rengar, but you need to be able to space really, really well on this champion too. So it's all about spacing. It's a very mechanical intensive champion, and if you know your limits on Yon, like your one-trick Yon, then you are very scary. If you're not a one-trick Yon and you don't know how to good setups and space well, you're just like a sitting duck in top lane, right? So it's very feast or famine. It's totally dependent on you as a player and if you're able to make the champion work or not. So yeah, choose for yourself. Yorick top. I would put him in B tier. He's kind of a good champion in the sense that he's strong in lane. He's not that strong level 1 to 6, but very often people in the lower MMRs will not punish it, so you're able to scale through your 6 for free. That's where you start becoming a champion because you get your maiden, you get your wife, you can do some stuff, you're very good at split pushing, you're oppressive in lane, but the champion to me lacks the ability to solo carry games unless you go for like the full build, or sorry, for like the full damage Yorick build where you're able to like one-shot people on side and like Slowpoke. So I feel like this champion is kind of too limited to solo carry games unless your opponents, or unless you play like against a comp where they cannot stop you on side lane, right? So those to me are kind of the criteria for when you should pick Yorick or not. Let's see, Zac top. I'd say Zac top is B tier. He's very good. No, he's counter pick. Zac top is counter pick. He's a counter pick tank, and I feel like he can do very well to certain matches. For example, Malphite really struggles playing against Zac because Zac trades with him, sustains, and Malphite has no sustain, so he just loses, right? But for example, if you play Zac into all of top, there's nothing you can really do, right? So you just pick the champion as a counter pick. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's not good. That's it. Let's see, who did we miss? Cassante. I would put Cassante in B tier. I feel like he's a decent stat check champion, but kind of similar to Sion, he's actually very mechanically intensive. You really need to learn how to space because his Q range is not that big, but if you're able to space well with your Q autos onto your opponents, you can always harass him out of lane. He's very good if you're able to space well and punish your opponents, but if you're not able to space well, the champion kind of feels very lackluster to play, and if you fall behind the Cassante, it's kind of hard because you want to always play in their faces, right? But if you have to play in their faces and you're behind this Cassante, you would just get completely one-shot. So that's why I don't like playing this champion myself too much, and I put him in B tier because of that. Let's see, is there any champions we forgot, guys? Let's see if there's anyone we should walk over still with. think we've covered everything, right? I think we have. I mean, you could argue with put Wukong and Udyr in there, but they're both counter picks because I feel like both Wukong only works against 80 topside champions because his passive only gives him armor, right? So he functions well into certain 80 top lane champions, but not all of them. For example, Jax's mixed damage is already harder. Olaf has his ult, so it's also very hard. But for example, against Rengar, he can do decent. So it's a counter pick champion, and kind of same for Udyr. Well, I actually put Udyr in B tier maybe because he does have mixed damage. He's good wave clear. He's decent in the early laning phase. He can definitely scale one to the game too. So, but he's not the best blind pick. I would just put him in B tier. Wukong to me is a counter pick champion. Now let's verify. Oh, Volibear. There we go. Volibear, B tier champion. Very limited kit. The lower you play, the stronger the champion will be because people don't know how to play around him, right? Because he's very high base damages, and people don't very often know how to play around his W and around his ultimate ability. But if your opponents actually have like the brain and like the knowledge on how to play against the champion, he falls off very fast. But in lower MMRs, they very often do not know how to play against Volibear, so he's actually still pretty strong to play in because they don't know how to deal with him. All right, let's see. Okay, no top lane champions, no top lane champions. All right, guys, I think we've had everything there. That's it. This is the final tier list. Hope you guys enjoyed it, learned some new stuff. These are my insights. If you want elo, you pick these 4 champions, and these champions are pretty good all as well. These are decent, right? Especially if you're like more, you probably need to spend more times on most of these champions. All these top lane champions are very, very good though. You like the S tier and the broken ones. So yeah, use those, get your elo. Good luck, guys. See you in the next one.